Welcome one, welcome all to episode 176 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Saturday, May 6th, 2023. I am your host, Luke Lohr, the InsipidGhost, joined by my co-host, the intrepid Captain Logan. And in this episode, we discuss the disappointing launch of Arkane's Redfall, and we'll ask if we're still able to find the fun in the game. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, gave an incredibly insightful interview over on Kinda Funny's XCast. Shout out to them. And we'll break that down a bit. And then lastly, we debate just how bad or good the year has gone for Xbox. As always, we hope you have enjoyed our show. Logan, we like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made our gaming weeks better. But first, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I don't know. It's been a heck of a week, both at work and at home and with gaming and stuff. So I don't know. It's weekend. I'm just happy. You know what? I went out last night with my wife after you and I were playing with some friends, and I had dinner, and it was teriyaki chicken with rice and salad, and it's my favorite type of food. Mm-hmm. So I gotta say, for a week that was pretty hectic, it ended on a pretty nice note at the end of the week. So I'm just enjoying the weekend at this point. How about you?
No, man, I'm really good. I enjoyed my week as well, and I wasn't sure I was going to, because we've had so much in the gaming space. We did a lot of Jedi playing. For coverage for that. Of course, we had a lot of Xbox news that was tough to keep up with. The Redfall launch, which I know we're going to get into, brought with it a ton of conversations. But last night, we played for several hours. We played, 3 hours of Redfall, and then jumped over to Fortnite for about an hour after that.
Yeah.
Played with Joseph Moran in Fortnite, played with James Suddy in Redfall. It was fun. We had a good end of the week evening, and then I stayed up and played more Redfall, and then crashed, man. It was a good end to the week as well for me. So that's nice. Cool.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Well, we like to start the show with words of kindness. Who are your words of kindness for this week, bud?
So I was thinking about some of the people that I've played games with this week. And I had a good time last night when I jumped in after all was said and done. Some of the Keelhauled people were jumping out in the Sea of Thieves, and they needed a fourth, so I helped them out, which is really nice. It was good to kind of talk to my friends there as well. But Fran Mirabella, he's still part of Kind of Funny, but he does late night streams, super late night for PST. Mm-hmm. And he has a few of his community who are you look like you're dying. Wow. Hi.
Wrong pipe.
Wrong pipe. Forget how to drink. Oh my God. So Fran plays games, and he generally brings in chatters that have, been part of his community for a while that he trusts. Mm-hmm. And he brought in a couple people, and I was able to jump in with him to play some Redfall. And I went through a whole bunch with him to kind of push through a lot of the story and kind of get an experience, which was on his save. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but it was nice to kind of get to hang out with his chat with himself, and kind of go through some gameplay and stuff, because he's one of the few creators that I think I gravitate towards because of his knowledge, his experience, his outlook on a lot of stuff. He's very, very tempered when it comes to opinions and thoughts and stuff, and he's always looking for sources when it comes to news. And as someone who loves to talk about game news, he's a real good luminary for our journalistic integrity that I think sometimes gets lost. Yeah,
sure.
It gets lost in the Twitterverse.
That's cool, man. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. I met Fran briefly at a Bethesda conference in one of those passing, but that's really cool. I didn't even got to game with him. That's cool, man. Very nice.
Yeah. He's very, very good community.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Fran and his community, man, because that sounds like you guys are having good times there, for sure. And of course, the Keelhauled crew. Always love hearing about them.
Yeah,
they're awesome. I want to give a shout out to Daniel, and I'm so sorry, Daniel. Walenzik.
I think it's
always cool. Say it.
Yeah, I think it's Walenzik. I'll go with
like
that.
Daniel.
I'll back it up.
Yeah, there you go. I love Daniel. Always positive over on Twitter, always, saying kind words, being supportive, very nary a negative word. And often using the find the fun hashtag, which is something I really appreciate because we really do try to find the fun in our games. Whether it's Jedi Survivor, whether it's Minecraft Legends, Dead Island, and of course Redfall this week. Finding the fun is something that we really like to do. He's always using that, and then of course he's just supporting his gaming community because I think he does the nerd chat, which is really cool. And so see you online, Daniel. You're awesome, man.
Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
And what's with the company starting to use the find the fun out there?
Right?
What's up with that?
Vince Zampella owes me royalties, sir.
Yeah.
That was my thing, and he's out there. He's like, we need to find the fun in our games. Like, yeah,
we know.
Yeah. That's what I've been saying, sir.
We're trying to find the fun in your games. I kid.
Yeah, Respawn does not miss. They had a rough launch, but that second patch for Jedi, man, that cleaned up a lot of my concerns, and I really, really am having a blast with it. So that's up.
I want another one.
Yeah, you want another patch? You mean?
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. Well, Logan, one of my favorite things to do is our Patreon pitch, where we appreciate everybody that takes the time and energy that they put into gaining money and then throwing a couple bucks our way. I often think of Patreon as our tip jar, where people support the show by watching, retweeting, liking, sharing, all that stuff. And Patreon is kind of the tip jar, and we put those tips towards making us look and sound better. And so I'm so appreciative of that. We gained 2 new members this week, which is awesome. And we also put out the Xbox wrap up this week for our tier 3 patrons. And that was my favorite episode to date, man. We put up, talked about our favorite Star Wars games, which couldn't have been more timely. And that was just a great, great chat. So tier 3 patrons, if you haven't checked it out, that's on audio and video now. So you can go take a gander there. But let's shout out our new members. I'm really excited by this one.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, man. I want to shout out Silent Cypher, who subscribed at tier 2. Which was awesome. And then he also welcomed me as a guest over on Xbox International Podcast. So Silent Cypher, you're awesome. Thank you for your support. And then Xbox Skittle, he subscribed at tier 3, which is amazing. I hope you enjoy your tier 3 content, but so cool, Xbox Skittle. So thank you both for becoming new patrons of XEP and helping us look and sound better. Cheers to you.
Yeah. And thank you to the other tier 2 and tier 3 shout outs for you guys. You're supporting. We love you so much. We've had some really fantastic conversations in the Discord this week. I even built out a thread just so that we could talk about the news that we're going to be talking about, but with other folks to kind of, it's so nice to get like rounded opinions. But thank you to the Discord members, the patrons that are in there chatting on a regular basis. So thank you to Silent Cypher, Xbox Skittle, African, aka Charles Jones, Game Positive, Zach LeCouture, Jam Pack Sam, Matt Valdez, Neo Prime 33, Rick Davis, Red Beast, Xbox Mike 29, Matt Without Fear, the Lord Sir Master James Suddy, Brendan Myers, aka The Winner Gamer, Sony's VP of Marketing Kevin Butler, Clint Coombs, DJ Hero, and Dano12. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Really do.
Yeah, big time. Always a pleasure. And man, they really did have some great discussions. I was AFK for a lot of the day in the past few days with my eye and just like not doing screen time. And getting to jump back in and kind of read through, man, rounded opinions by gamers who play games on all platforms and have really thoughtful takes. And that's the best part about curating a community, man. So it's just people that want to be there and chat and enjoy yourselves. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So, well, Logan, let's start second place down in our notes. Let's go to the Redfall review. We've been playing Redfall a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's worthy to talk about Redfall and then get to Phil Spencer's wonderful interview over on Kinda Funny, where he addressed Redfall and a number of other things. And I want to ask the question, has Xbox had a bad year? Because I've seen a lot of that kind of take in the wake of Redfall reviews. And so let's take a gander here at just what Redfall is scoring, because it's mixed and interesting. So VGC scored Redfall at a 4 out of 5, Stevivor 7.5 out of 5, PC Games 7 out of 10, and Press Start 6.5 out of 10, Metro 6 out of 10, VG 24/7 3 out of 5, Gaming Bolt 5 out of 10, Games Radar 2.5 out of 5, Well Played 4.5 out of 10, GameSpot 4 out of 10, Kinda Funny 2 out of 5, Metacritic 62, OpenCritic 65. I think there's more that have gone up since I created this.
IGN came out. They were 4 out of 10.
Yep.
Which is
it's
low.
a little wild. Yeah, it is low. The funny part is I've put in, I think I'm north of 12 hours at this point. I could agree with everything in that review list. Anything between a 5 and 7, I think it makes sense for me, with the exception of the 4s. I think those are a little low for me. I saw some people giving it a 9. That's not true at all. That's a little bit silly. But I really have a lot of mixed thoughts on Redfall, and I know you do too. But anybody that's talking to me between 5 and 7, I'll agree with. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it, because this is a conundrum of a game, and certainly not what Xbox wanted to deliver as a tentpole title. This was kind of their two major tentpoles of 2023, and it's absolutely disappointing critically, and seemingly with a lot of fans for some interesting reasons. But while I will all in say, yeah, it disappoints on a number of levels, 12 hours in, I'm having fun. I'm finding the fun, but I fully agree with all the criticisms. It's a unique place to be.
Yeah. I am so surprised by this game, because I've got just under 17 hours in it, and the criticisms are valid. I'll be honest, and I've gone through. I've listened to other people, and I've listened to what they have to say and what they pointed out, and there's some very, very, very keyed in things that even I would be like, no one mentioned this, but I honestly feel like the AI, while it's not good, I think is bland. I think that they really didn't come up with anything very creative for what they could have done with the AI. So it's like, I see things like that and I'm like, yeah, I 100% see the criticism and I agree 100% with it. At the same time, for whatever reason, I like shooting vampires and I like staking them. And the setting that we're in, while it is empty, it is really, really well thought out as far as like how stylized it is. Like, it just looks like a really cool environment, and you don't get that too often.
We had a really good conversation with Ainsley Bowden over on Cast Co-op, which I'll point people towards, because when we recorded that, it was Monday. Embargo had lifted 15 minutes prior to when we went live, and Ainsley had played over 30 hours of the game. He did his review on Season Gaming, which I'll shout out right now. And I had played 3 hours of the game at the time, because we got our codes. We did get codes for this one, guys, Sunday afternoon, which is very late because the game came out Monday. So we didn't have like review timing, and that's just as well because we were playing Jedi. But I had 3 hours, he had 30 hours, and we were saying almost the exact same thing, which is telling, I think, for a game like this, because now at 4 times what I had played last time, and still maybe halfway through the story, because the story changes about halfway through according to Ains, and I've gotten to that point. It's a strange thing. The AI truly is bland, and you can manipulate a lot of fights, and you'll die very rarely unless you're not paying attention, which I don't pay attention sometimes. And it certainly deserves a lot of criticism in a lot of areas, because the AI does not perform well, and so fights don't get very creative. Coming off of Dead Island, where the environment is used consistently to destroy zombies, the environment here is set up to destroy vampires, but isn't used very well. Like, if you'll shoot things to make them explode and stuff, but it's not very creative in how it's shown. And yet, fully agree with you. The environment is wonderful. It's very atmospheric. This game should have come out around October, because it really feels nice and spooky and fun, and I like the world a lot. And shooting vampires and those cultists is fun, albeit extremely mindless, very mindless. But I'm enjoying going around and just killing it. But I think in my time, you can see a lot of what this game has to offer in the first few hours, and you'll decide if you like it or not. But I venture to guess that people playing the game will kind of catch that bug that we caught. If they go in with an open mind, you'll play it and you'll be like, oh, this doesn't work well. This doesn't do well. This doesn't do well. And then, you'll be removed from the game and be like, I kind of want to go play Redfall. That happened to me a few times.
You know what this game reminds me of? It reminds me of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in the way that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and hang with me, crew.
Okay. All right. So I'm like, where's it going here?
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is a game that has a broad appeal due to the Star Wars IP.
Mhm.
It is a fantastic game, but it is got some very heavy borrowed elements from Dark Souls and Souls-like games. So if you're not familiar with those games, then you're going to be put off instantly because it is tough to have to learn how to dodge and parry and go with those mechanics. But they give you a lightsaber, which is so much fun that you push through.
Mhm.
Redfall is kind of like baby's first Far Cry. It has all of the elements. It's kind of like a Division game where you have to go out, you have to get safe houses, and you have to clear out neighborhoods to be able to finish the quests to get the skull that you need, one of 3, to be able to go to the first boss in the first zone. So you're going out into the world. You're getting into resource areas where you need to have safe houses to get more med kits, to get more ammo. You're getting incrementally better gear as you go, and you get special things like as far as like legendaries and stuff.
Mhm.
And you're just kind of clearing out the map as you move along from quest to quest to quest to quest, and you're uncovering the story as you do, much like a Far Cry game, much like a Division game. But it is so dumbed down, not in a you're not smart enough to figure this out kind of thing, but just this didn't have the care and attention to really flesh it out to let you know, like, okay, this is what you have to do after you do this. The breadcrumbing is not nearly as intuitive as it could be. Like, there's a map, but everything's gray on the map except for a couple yellow points, but they don't tell you what the yellow points are. And there's no waypoint to let you know. Like, you have to physically put your own waypoint down if you want to know the direction that you need to go to those things. So in some senses, I could see this being a great game for those people that love the staking vampires, because I think that is the satisfying thing that you get when you're playing like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, is you get the lightsaber, you get to cut things in half. With one of these type of open world action games that have you traversing the map to clear out nests, to take down like cultist camps, things like that. But it's so simplified that you can kind of shut your mind off and just run around and shoot things, and the AI is dumbed down to the point where you're not really in fear of getting too overwhelmed, because all you have to do is go around a corner and they'll lose aggro and they'll kind of walk around confused. So it's not like there's not really any kind of fear from them because of the type of AI that they put in. But would you agree with that, or would you think that maybe I'm making a weird comparison?
It's a comparison that makes sense once explained. I do understand what you're saying, and I do appreciate how initially it can be a little alienating when you go in, but there is something to the idea that, like, this is an almost Far Cry, right? This is
Yeah.
kind of baby's first in many ways, and frankly, I feel like everything in Redfall is 80% done, and
Yeah.
oftentimes the best parts of a game come together in that last 95. And this is what I'm hearing from, like, Raising Kratos' documentary and a number of other, like, developers saying that. I don't know that firsthand.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense because you can see critically awesome things throughout. Like, there's a red mist that prevails the game, and you beat it by shining UV light on special like blood bags that are inside of it.
Yeah.
But it never tells you that, right? And it feels like they meant to do that.
Mhm.
There are certain mini vampires that go throughout the game that are mini bosses, I should say, but it doesn't really explain what their role is. And there are certain ways that you
Yeah.
progress story missions, and it doesn't explain how this happens. And there are no cutscenes in the game. There are stills that play almost infamous 1 and 2 style and
Well,
comic book style throughout.
that's
And
the
that
weird thing, is that those stills, most of those, like between missions and stuff, those are all fully rendered. So it's like you see your character in the cosmetics that you're in, and it's like, well, why didn't you guys just animate it? It's already
80%
rendering.
done. I think they triaged what they could and couldn't finish in the time that they had, and they put out a product. And
Yeah.
I consistently see things like that throughout Redfall, and I enjoy a lot of it, but there's no way to not be critical of it either, right? There should be
Yeah.
cutscenes, and then when you replay, you called them audio logs. I don't know that I would call them audio logs, but like there are memories that you can play through at different points in the actual story or side missions, and they're not very well explained as to what role they play at different points. But there are some really neat mission styles. Like when you go to the Hollow Man, you're playing in a giant dollhouse in a weird mystical world that to this point in my story, it's not explained why that is. That's a cool concept. You get to the boss fight, it's kind of undercooked, underbaked in many ways. And so
Yeah.
there are a lot of really good ideas in Redfall that are almost executed upon.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my kicker. The loot system, very lackluster. You have your common, rare, epic, legendary
Yeah.
queues, but they really don't do much because if you just take the higher level one, you're better off.
Always go
You
with
go
the higher level one. The
Yep.
stats on those, they don't mean a hill of beans.
Right. And when you go through, you and I, when we were first exploring the game and the first part of us playing together, you were want to stop and loot everything. And I
Yeah.
was not paying attention. I couldn't have cared less, just the two different natures of the types of gamer we are. And I just was tapping X a lot and then moving on. And what's disappointing about that is for fans of Fallout and fans of looter shooters, there's a big benefit to going around and looting. And the game teases you that it's like that, similar to Borderlands or whatnot. And in fact, it's not. And walking through and holding X in this case is the right thing to do because it all just defaults down into currency, which amusingly is called what is it? Doubloons?
Doubloons. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's frustrating to me because they built a system that should serve gamers like you, where you want to go through and find your best stat and min-max stuff. And it
Yeah.
kind of doesn't. It's just, there's no real point to it. And so it's kind of frustrating.
But I will say into that in kind of in finding the fun, everything that you loot aside from ammo and guns and med kits immediately gets broken down. There's no inventory that you have to manage. It immediately turns into the currency that you use to refill your ammo, to buy items, to buy restock on things. So it's like they understood like, yeah, these are going to be pointless and you don't really need them, but for not running into enemies to be able to loot what they drop, because if you kill a guy and he drops a gun, you don't get to pick up that gun. That's not how that works.
Which was off-putting at first and then immediately dismissed. I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah, it's you find weapons in bags and in trunks and in items and stuff. That's where you get your weapons from. But like for the most part, they understood like, hey, we're not going to have time to build out a crafting system or a resource system, a la most of the stuff that you need. Like you don't need to collect anything to upgrade your weapons. Like that's just not a thing. Like you upgrade your weapons by getting levels and finding better weapons in the game. Mm-hmm. And all the weapon types are the same. There's a handful of them. They're all called the same. They're just varying in level and quality. So once you find the weapons that you like, you can just carry all of them that you want. And the ammo system's like Fortnite, where you just pick up all the ammo that you want. So if you want to swap out your UV beam gun at one point because you're out of ammo to a pistol, which you haven't used at all, there's nothing stopping you from pulling out your pistol and being able to use all of the ammo that you've held onto for your pistol.
Let's touch on the weapons and the weapon shifting specifically, because you're allowed to carry 3 weapons at any given time. And on an Xbox controller, it's very frustrating because you have to cycle through in order. There's no way to like hold Y for an extended period to pull out your third weapon, or if you want the second or the first weapon in your inventory, but you're on the second, you got to cycle through the third to get back to it, which seems very that doesn't seem to be a big deal in conversation, but then in practice, it can really make or break some hectic moments in the game. And to your point earlier, it's a pretty forgiving game because of the AI and just the way the fights play out.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem, but it's an encumbrance. And that's a lot of the issues that we have with Redfall are encumbrances. And those weapons, like let's say you have one of your 3, which you need to shift to get a UV beam to service a certain game moment. There's no way to do that quickly. You got to hit select or the menu button. Then you got to left bumper over to your loadout, click on your gun that you want to swap out, go into the menu, click the gun that you do want to swap in, then B button back out to get to back to the fight. And all of that is happening in real time, whether you're playing single player or multiplayer. It's all very there's a lot of encumbrance in that. And so everything's going on around you. There was a moment last night, I don't even know if you remember it, where you were just like, Luke, you're getting attacked. And all I was trying to do was get a UV beam out, and you're like, hey, you're taking damage. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. Like, and I had no indicator that I was taking damage.
No,
that I noticed.
Yeah,
just in a menu.
The menu is 100% an opaque thing. It's like switching. It's like turning your back on the game because you have no idea what's going on in game.
Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit frustrating, I think. Some of the weapons are fun to use. Others I really did not like, and I think it's a preference thing. But
what do you like? What do you like? What do you go for?
So my character is a sniper by nature. My ultimate is a really good sniper rifle that headshot locks on. And then I have a stealth, like I go cloaked. I have Jacob as the character. And I like Jacob a lot. In fact, that cloak has come in very useful. And the headshot super sniper rifle has come in very useful to putting down some bosses very quickly. Whether that's good or bad is debatable. But I put up a clip where I took down a mini boss in 10 seconds. Just done. It's like, okay, that's a mini boss. Is that good? I don't know. It's fine. But my loadout is at the moment a assault rifle, which I think is a great default, a shotgun, and either a UV beam or a sniper rifle. And on any gun that I'm able to, I apply a stake because it's just annoying. If you take down a vampire, you have to stake them to kill them or use the UV beam. If you take them down with a shotgun or AR or pistol that doesn't have a stake readily available to it, attached to it, you just switch weapons to go up and stake them, which cool in premise, not as effective in practice. I feel like it should just be a default. Do you have a stake or not? And done. And
to be clear, like there's no weapon degradation. You don't have to technically equip the stake to a weapon that has the ability to have a stake. The stakes are automatically there. The stake
you
that
can't
you
go in
see.
and add it.
No. It's just it's already there. It's just there's a skin.
No, you can go in and add a stake to weapons.
How?
I realize why you're confused because it doesn't tell you this. There, you go into the loadout, click on the gun, and click details.
Yeah.
And then on the left side is skin. On the right side, if you can add a stake to it, you click on that, and then it gives you a number of different stake options, and you can click on that.
Okay, so I never saw the part on the right. I only ever saw the skins.
I saw the skins as well, and I found myself this morning going in and adding stakes to weapons that didn't have stakes.
Oh my god.
Right. Now here's the fear of me telling you this. What if that was a bug? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
but I absolutely added stakes to 2 different guns this morning.
Interesting.
Which it was. And it was frustrating.
I've defaulted to having a some sort of like assault rifle because there's a couple variants out there, or a shotgun because both of those for sure have stakes, and then I'll have either like a UV beam, or a sniper, or like a what's the other one? The stake launcher, which is really fun because it's kind of like that. What's the impaler in Halo Infinite? What's the thing?
Oh my gosh, I'm looking right at it. I'm embarrassed because I don't know. I'm on the spot here. I know what you're talking about. It's the stake gun. I'm gonna look that up.
What's it called?
I'm gonna look it up.
It's it's effectively like one of those things, but it has a magazine, which is really nice. So that like I've been using those because if you headshot a vampire with one of those, it's a lot of damage, and you can almost one shot a vampire in the head with one of those, which doesn't make sense. It should be in the chest. It's
skewer.
Yeah. Okay. Skewer. So yeah, it's like a skewer with a magazine.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fun, but it uses different types of stakes. So you find stakes out in the world, and it could be like a broken pole cue. It could be an iron rod. It could be like just a wood stake. A lot of different options there. So, but it's little things like that I think that are the annoyances. Like when you complete a mission, you have an option to hold two buttons. One is either B or one is the start button,
Mhm.
or the three lines to go back to the firehouse or to close the menu. Everything that you do, whether it's learning something or a mission or some sort of like tutorial, you have this little panel that pops up on the right. And if you ignore it, you can still keep playing through the game. It'll stay there forever. But you have to hold down B to close it. And sometimes that bugs out. But the fact that they designed it so that it has to be something that you can't just quickly clear uh, frustrates me, because it's not taking into account that the information can be recalled in any easy means, and also that they're not taking your atmosphere into account when you're getting that pop up. Usually it's at the end of a mission, but if there's still enemies at the end of a mission from a different area that have come in,
Mhm.
then you're sitting there trying to get rid of this menu item so that you have more visibility on your screen to actually deal with what's going on.
I think what's most frustrating about it is it's almost good.
Yeah.
Almost good. You know what I mean? Like you can see that it was almost there. And that's the point I keep going back to. There are several one of the things I like doing in games, open world specifically, is clearing maps. That's fun, right? I'm
Yeah.
anxious for this wave of big games to release, and I'm not rushing myself through Redfall or Jedi because I want to enjoy them. And I know you're anxious for Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm looking forward to, when I'm kind of calmed down a bit, to going back to Ghostwire Tokyo and just clearing some map stuff, you know?
Yeah.
In Redfall, I did not. So I progressed to the same story beat as you in my single player, as your one that you had a save ready for us. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what? Why was he so excited about this? What? He's at the same spot I am. Well, there was a thing that I had not done in my game that was not very well explained, which is you have to get certain types of skulls to open the next big phase. And it didn't explain well that I needed to do that. And so I was like, well, how do you do that? I was going through and clearing vampire nests instead of clearing neighborhoods, because in my mind, the nests are in the neighborhood. And you were like, no, you got to go to this wall in a safe house, pick up the mission to clear the neighborhood. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. And I'm sure it was on a B button that I cleared quickly, because there are a lot of those little sidebars things that pop up too many times next to each other. One or two I can handle, but four at a time, five at a time, I'm clearing them by the fourth and fifth.
Yeah.
And so, not very well presented. Maybe not. Maybe it's well explained and I dismissed it, but not very well presented. Then caused me to be like, "Yo, what did he do that I didn't?" Because I'm further along in certain story parts than you were at the
Yeah.
time. You had gone and cleared neighborhoods. I had not. I did that last night after we were done playing multiplayer,
Mhm.
and really enjoyed myself. That was nice. It was going clearing a map, getting a little mission done. And missions aren't hard. I like easy games,
Yeah.
and so I felt good. I was just going through shooting cultists and doing my thing. I like going stealth. I like having the super sniper. You have a really cool traversal means with your character that I don't have.
Yeah.
But in not explaining how to get those skulls, I suddenly was stopped from progressing my main story,
Mhm.
and that became a problem, I thought. And then
Yeah.
I want to compare the boss fight we did at the end, which is the Hollow Man. And I'm not going to spoil the game for anybody, but I will say the multiplayer version of that was very hectic. So many ads being spawned. Whereas when I played single player, it was very easy to manage,
Yeah.
extremely easy to manage. That's a different element too. And because it was easier to manage, I could see what was going on and see what they were going for. And what they were
Mhm.
going for was cool. They did not work in multiplayer very well at all. So
Yeah, the idea was there. You could see like how they were trying to use the arena that the boss is in to try and give you like reasons to traverse as opposed to standing in one spot. And they tried to give you enough resources to be able to manage it and stuff. The fight itself, while a spectacle, it falls short of tuning.
mm,
It's not a boss fight that was very interesting. It
mm,
was cool, but it wasn't interesting. And I feel like that is like at the heart of my review for Redfall is cool. It's just not interesting.
mhm.
I liked the Rook fight, but the Rook
Really?
fights, I like the Rook fight in because it's cool. It is cool. Like there's a storm that comes in. He's a big dude. He's got a hood. He's like running around. You think he's gonna like beat the ever living heck out of you. But then it's another vampire fight with a little bit heftier hit point.
For context, listeners, the rook shows up when you've bothered the vampires enough across the map
Yeah.
the vampire god has been watching you and is finally like, you know what, I'm sending my enforcer after you.
Yeah.
And you're right. It looks cool, the cool lightning storm and everything else, but I just backed up and shot.
Yeah. It's not interesting.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No.
But the vampire nests are cool.
Those are cool.
But they're not interesting. You go into a vampire nest through a doorway. It's a twisted version of Redfall, which is in Maine.
Like a dream state.
Like a dream state. And you go through and you clear out, a few vampires here and there. And then you get a little bit of a hefty wave towards the end of it. And at the very end, you're presented with this big crystallized heart with a bunch of tethers to it, to victims that have been kind of crystallized in blood, that are kind of anchoring this vampire nest. And you have to go and you have dope. It sounds dope. It's cool, but it's not interesting. And it's because when you get done with releasing the victims, that's it. There's no boss. There's no final like, oh, how could you? There's no creature in the heart to fight. It's just that's it. Then it's a 1 minute loot sprint going around trying to grab as many of the weapons out of the little crystal hollows that they have in there before the whole thing collapses. And if you get booted out of it, like if you don't leave within the amount of time, it doesn't matter. There's no reason for you to have to rush to the end. You don't have to leave and lose and risk losing everything. If you go and you loot everything in the game and it collapses, you still get to keep everything.
Yeah.
So there's no risk involved with the timer.
Because you and I were rushing each other, like let's go, and then we lost. And we were like, no, we got everything. That was weird.
Yeah. So it was cool, but it wasn't interesting. And I think that's kind of like I'm glad that they did it, but there was nothing really like, wow, damn, I can't believe we did that. Because, had they pushed us to get out at a certain amount of time, maybe giving you a little bit more time, for that, and you didn't do that, then it had like reverted you back to the state that you were before you went and did the nest. Like maybe that would have been more interesting because there's a risk and reward. Like you're going in there and stuff. Or maybe if the whole nest had been a timed thing and you had to push through to try and get as much done as you could. And instead of like releasing the victims, you just had to shoot them. And then you could start collecting all that loot, but you were on the timer the whole time. Then maybe that would have been more interesting than
again,
what
80% done.
Yeah.
80%. Like the idea is there. And those nests on the map, if you don't handle them, their sphere of influence gets bigger and the vampires in there are stronger. But I didn't notice a thing of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't notice a single bit that encumbered me.
No.
And the last thing I want to touch on is because we do need to move on to our next topic. The characters. I really like Jacob going stealth, having the super sniper rifle, but traversal is really a pain in the butt with him. Whereas you have this really cool teleportation mode, and then another character,
Layla
has that really cool elevator kick up.
Yeah,
that is really, really helpful. So like my character does some dope stuff, but traversal is a pain.
Yeah.
So
Devinder, I think, is secretly the best character because you get the lightning javelin, which will kill vampires in a weakened state. It'll also shock people too, so they'll get stunned. Then you've got the little teleporter portal, which you can either translocate yourself, you can translocate your allies, but you can also pump up the skill tree, which the skill trees, I'm just going to say it's worthless. There's nothing exceptional in there.
And you get XP too slowly.
Way too slowly. I'm 17 hours in roughly, and I'm only like level 14 or 15. Like I should be like level 30 at this point.
And I think I'm level 14 as well because I gained XP while we played on your save.
Yeah.
And I'm 12 hours in on the game total, but like
I want to touch on that too, by the way.
Go quick, yeah.
Okay, real quick. Whoever's hosting the match, first off, the fact that the fact that you can't invite or you can't jump into someone else's game at any point, like the story progress is all tied to whoever's hosting it. I've had to do the Hollow Man 2 times now, one on someone else's save and one on mine. I hate the fact that I have to play on a save that is roughly around the same level as what I am if I want to actually progress. But if I want to progress, it has to be on mine. And it's so hard because I like playing with friends on this game, but I can't recommend playing with friends if they want to be able to play beyond where we are on their own, because they're going to have to go through and play everything that we did all over again, which means that if it took 4 hours for us to get through to Hollow Man, they're going to have to play 4 hours to get to Hollow Man if they want to go play on there, or they're going to have to wait till we play again. And it's a timing thing. It's not a fun thing to have to try and work around as adults.
Agreed. And given that, according to Ains, because I've only just started experiences after Hollow Man, where you go to an entirely new map, the game really changes and opens up and is more exciting. And I played maybe half an hour past Hollow Man, and I could see it. I'm like, oh, I see there's more. The world is more lived in, more enemies, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, this is probably a more fun version. And I'm like, why is this 5 to 6 hours into the game? You know? And how many people are going to bounce off? Because I told Ains in that cast co-op discussion that I think he and I are saying, I think most people are going to have what I had. Like at that point, I had played 3 hours of the game. And I think no one's going to go. I think very few people are going to go past that. But there's clearly fun to be had here. And our community, we thrive ourselves or pride ourselves and thrive in the idea of finding the fun. There is fun to be found here. Yeah. And if you have Game Pass, you should check it out and see if it's for you. Or down the line, wait a little bit because they're going to be doing some more improvements to the game.
Yeah.
Play the game then, because there is fun to be had here. It's just not the 10-pole win that it absolutely needed to be.
No.
So, well, in that, Redfall, played on Game Pass, wait to buy it. We got codes for it. Know that. I did purchase the Bite Back edition. Did a fun little video on that one. Don't know what the Bite Back edition really brought me, if I'm being honest with you. I know I got some cosmetics, but like it was more to have a steelbook and so it goes. Before we go to our next topic, I just want to plug something. We are going to be talking to Erica Lindbeck. The week that this comes out, we'll be talking to her. She is the voice of a number of gaming characters, including Peppermint from Hi-Fi Rush, Misty in Cyberpunk 2077, Amy in Fortnite, and her resume is just incredible. We're looking forward to chatting with her, and we'll get that up on the channel soon. So definitely stay tuned on that one and watch your feed for it accordingly. Logan, Phil Spencer did a wonderful interview over on Kind of Funny's XCast, their Xbox podcast. Fun fact, I was on that show years ago, and I would love to go back. But the interview was not intended to be about Redfall and the disappointment. It was originally intended to discuss ID at Xbox titles. And of course, there's a logical pivot because the idea was they were going to be celebrating Redfall and then talking ID at Xbox. That was not the case. In fact, Redfall to such disappointment that dominated the discussion. And the question was asked on a number of cases like, well, how did this happen? What's going on? And I thought Phil Spencer was very candid in this. And I wonder if you would kind of lead this debate here, because I watched the interview myself. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I must credit Kind of Funny with a great interview set there. And I thought Phil's candid nature really helped.
Yeah, this was a really fantastic insight. I discovered stuff that it was nice to hear the confirmations for a lot of things that we'd kind of talked about in the past and things that we've kind of assumed with Xbox. But to hearing him talk about it really was sobering to kind of recognize like what's going on. First off, the fact that he had a Republica Gaming ally on his back shelf is a real testament to that being what I think you've talked about, where you think that the handheld market is going to be left to third party for Xbox. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see where that plays through. We're going to get some more news on that, which I want to cover in the future. But the interview was kind of broken down into three sections. There was the initial kind of CMA take and what's going on. There was the Redfall discussion and studio discussion in general, and then there was kind of the discussion around the showcase and what we should expect with that. So to kind of kick things off, the CMA blocked. We talked about this last week. Blocked the acquisition for Microsoft and Activision Blizzard King. Phil's very confident and plans to appeal the CMA's decision. I was very happy to hear that because I think what they've defined as a market of gaming for cloud structure does not actually exist yet, but I can see their concerns as far as Microsoft having too much strength in that market when it does come to fruition. So I think that there's an easy way for them to kind of point at that and be like that. And again, I go back to the fact that they glossed over the console thing. So it's clear that everyone understands where Microsoft sits, and that's no longer a concern. ABK is Phil talked about this. He said that it's not their strategy, but it's their accelerant for their strategy. Mm-hmm. And this was something that I wanted to get your thoughts on, but I think that what he's talking about here is the mobile marketplace. I think what Phil wants to do, and he talks about this towards the end, which I'll talk about with the showcase aspect, is that Phil sees Xbox as more than just consoles and PC. He also sees it as mobile. You know, cloud streaming is a very strong market that they want to push towards. It's why they've been signing 10-year deals with these different companies. It's why the CMA is blocking. They see like what's going on, and I do too. And I think that ABK is less about Activision Blizzard and more about King. And I think King is what's going to help them push deeper into that mobile strategy. Because if I'm being honest, I think there's a world where Microsoft has their own store on Apple and Google phones. And I think that if they can get the legal way or the legalities of that worked out, then I can see a future where they're going to sell their games on your phone without having to give a cut to Apple and Google for every purchase. But what did you think of something like that?
So about CMA and ABK, is that like the cloud-based approach that they're making? Is that what you're asking me?
Like he says like the ABK thing is not their strategy, but it's an accelerant to their strategy. How did you kind of interpret that?
I appreciated this sentiment because it certainly makes it feel like ABK is in doubt now in a way that it's not. They have 14 markets to clear, and according to Phil in this interview, they've cleared 9 of them. Which makes good sense. Some of them non-issues, but US, UK, and EU, kind of the big major ones. I think they cleared Japan, which was cool.
Yeah.
And a bunch of others. And they were surprised by the CMA rejecting the ABK deal on the premise of cloud gaming, a market that, to Microsoft's approach, they don't believe exists yet. So how could they truly be dominating a market leader, right? So it makes sense that they would have an accelerant to this proposal, because what they want to do is get Xbox as a property, as a brand in front of people. And that is done no longer by solely having a console base. And so the ABK being an accelerant to it allows them to open up to a mobile market, have an install base, but also the knowledge to build an install base by way of King in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise. They're also using Game Pass to flesh out an online games and service catalog that's available anywhere. And you look at Activision's portfolio of games like World of Warcraft, Call of Duty Mobile. Those are two very prominent, high-profile titles that you don't need a dedicated, branded proprietary device to play. You can play Call of Duty Mobile on your phone. You can play World of Warcraft on a number of different types of PCs. That market permutation without having to have a proprietary device is the knowledge that they seek. It's the accelerant to the idea of log into Game Pass, play wherever you want, which also kind of runs parallel to the idea of have an app store on a device, right? The kicker with that is a Google Android powered device uses the Google Play Store. An iPhone uses the Apple iPhone Store. Those are monopolies in some people's minds, and there are debates about that. Funny enough, with this ABK deal going on, there's also been a lot of battle in the EU about monopolies and Apple. having a monopolization on their app market, and you have to give a cut and whatnot. And so Google and Microsoft have been very much on the same side during that battle. And so the ABK acquisition being an accelerant makes good sense, because what they've been doing is fleshing out their catalog since the initial announcement of Game Pass. They brought in Exile, Obsidian, Double Fine. They brought in whoever makes State of Decay. It was second party, and then they were first party. Undead Labs, pardon me. And then to make a $7 billion acquisition of Bethesda and bring in that knowledge base, distributing games as service with Fallout 76, having the Elder Scrolls approach, all very, very good in its own right. Adding something that is so powerful as the ABK branding and knowledge base is the key accelerant to that strategy. I would like us to touch on his statement of why losing the Xbox One generation was so important, and how they're not going to out console the other two console sellers, because I think that's why they need this accelerated strategy, the ABK deal, to push that strategy, because they are no longer in the business of trying to one-to-one win a console generation, because to their strategy, that does not exist any longer.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll kind of, let's put the Redfall discussion that they had on hold for right now. Let's talk about the Xbox showcase, because this was something that was addressed about from Paris Lilly, who wanted to kind of understand, like, where are we at with all of the studios and the projects that have been announced since 2021. Phil didn't. Yeah, Phil didn't sugarcoat this at all about Paris's comments about them not delivering in 2022. Like, you can tell, like, he was really hurt to hear this, because it's it really hurts to hear him talk about this, because it feels like Phil wanted to have a stellar 2022. And it didn't happen, and he was very disappointed and frustrated about that. They went into the discussion about them recognizing that them losing the Xbox One generation was one of the hardest things that the Xbox has had to deal with, because in their mind, they lost everyone building up a digital library, because that's where going into the next generation was going to lock people in, wherever they had their digital library. Because if you buy games, or if you buy movies through iTunes, chances are you're going to stick with Apple for a long time, because you need access to those movies. It's where your library is. You're going to be loyal to the ecosystem. Now you can get around that nowadays, because they've offered their app on multiple things. And I think that's what's going on with Xbox. Xbox realizes that they didn't have an opportunity to win over gamers with good games and a good bit of hardware to be able to build up their digital libraries the way that it did with the PS4. So that,
what a candid statement! What a candid statement!
Like, an amazingly candid, to find out, like, that's what they pulled away from the Xbox generation. It's why we got games with gold, as you pointed out in the show notes. It's why we got cloud and play anywhere. It's why we got Game Pass. They needed a cheap way to build out library for gamers. That's why they're introducing games at a first party level, day and date, with their launches on Game Pass, because they want to try and make up ground for people not having those digital libraries from the Xbox One generation. They recognize it.
What's interesting is how counter to Sony's strategy that is, because Sony's approach was, okay, they won, and Sony won that generation by a margin of 2-1 or better. And it's interesting because Sony has put so much time into developing their games for PlayStation, and the PC games are a recent thing, and they're an afterthought. So anybody that's got a PlayStation, you're buying it for that first party experience, and the PC games come later, which allows them to focus on quality of distribution, quality of release, focused. This is where you make it. Whereas in the need to build a digital library, Xbox said we'll also do day and date PC. And that, I believe, has led to some of the fracturing of top tier elements of it. Like Halo Infinite launches very well, high 80s Metacritic. I think Halo Infinite's a great game. It disappointed on the games of service side, right?
Yeah.
But Redfall is our example, most recently, obviously, where it wasn't done. Like, clearly resources were spread too thin for a number of reasons, and the approach of trying to fill out that digital library very quickly, get the games out there, PC as well as Xbox XSX, that has caused a quality control problem. So in the need to counter the Xbox One failure by building out a digital library, they addressed it by saying day and date PC, available on Game Pass, available on cloud, all these places you can play it. That gets you your digital library. But the byproduct of that is less emphasis on focused one platform release, which can lead to quality problems.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's like the choices that I've made with where I buy games has a lot to do with where I can access them. I typically do not play, like if I'm playing my Nintendo Switch or my PlayStation 5, those are in the living room. If I'm playing Xbox games, I can be in the living room. I can be in the bedroom on my phone. I can be at my computer here. I can play on my Xbox behind the computer. I can play on my Xbox One on the other TV over here. Like it doesn't matter where I go because I can have access to those. And it's has pushed me away from Steam and more over to the Windows Store or the Xbox app on PC because I've already got points there. I've got credit that's available to me. You know, I do the points every month to get the $10. Yep. So I'm getting currency for a store through all the places that I play. And that helps kind of build up my digital library on my PC because I never got into Steam that much. I was always through the Blizzard store. So it was never like a, oh, well, you know, I'll just get it. I'll wait for it to come on Steam. Now with PlayStation, it's like, yeah, they have really good curated games, but they're failing on the PC side of it because it was never intended for PC from the get-go. So the ports are having a lot of issues with that. And it's always been a later thing for those. So they are constantly like, that's the reason why they hiked up the prices is because they need that influx of cash at the beginning of the game's life to feed for their next games and their next studios acquisitions. And the PC is kind of scooping up the market that didn't buy the console. And it's they're going to have to do some quality control if they want to maintain the positive vibes that come from it being a PlayStation game. You know, if it comes out and it plays poorly, it's just like with issues going on with Xbox right now. It doesn't matter if it's a fun game. If it doesn't play well, no one's going to play it because they don't want to play a busted game.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to move on, but if you got something else.
Oh, please.
Okay. It was interesting to kind of hear in talking about the Xbox showcase that some of the lessons that Phil has kind of learned from Redfall as well. But it was nice to see that IGN's video of running Redfall on PC at 60 frames and knowing that it was going to launch at 30 on consoles. That was something that I was like, it's good that you guys are specifically going to show what is representative of the console experience from here on out and having better transparency about what console gamers can expect to see. Because he
called that out. He said that was a problem. Like he was lamenting that. I want to be clear for any listener that didn't catch it. He was upset with how that was shown. And he said he was upset with himself as well as the leadership for allowing that to happen because it's not fair to their, what do they say? The console owners are their primary stakeholders. They're their most prominent supporters, something akin to that. I'm paraphrasing. It wasn't representative of the console experience, as you said, and he was upset about that, which I think is good. Yeah. I'm upset about it too.
Yeah.
They have the sticker on the box, right?
Yeah.
Covering up the 60 frames.
Well, this is the Cyberpunk 2077 issue. Everything we saw was either trailers or PC gameplay, and we didn't see console gameplay till the launch of the game. And when we finally got to see launch footage, because all the footage that was provided for like it was in the NDA that if you were going to be reviewing this game, you had to use the video footage from CDPR, which was very telling about the quality of the game that was going to launch. This is the same thing in my mind. This is the exact same thing. You're showing a game that's running on PC at 60 frames per second, and then you're launching a game on console at 30. That is mismarketing.
I agree. And it's unfair to the player base that's purchasing and spending money in there, and it makes them less inclined to spend money in your product. I said on Twitter, I said on Cast Co-op, I maintain, despite my enjoyment of Redfall is bad for Xbox. And clearly, based on the interview, he's right. Like, I'm right. Like, it is bad for Xbox because of that.
And Phil actually opened up about this. He said that there's an expectation from gamers when a studio goes from a third party acquisition to a first party company, there's an expectation that needs to be addressed, and they didn't address it when it came to Redfall. He talks about how Redfall was deep enough into development that they trusted that ZeniMax would handle it, that they would have that quality there. And the studio Arkane Austin have come out with really good games, so there was not really much oversight on what was going on with Redfall. And he laments about that as well too, because he realizes, like, hey, we should have stepped in a lot more when we first acquired ZeniMax to take a look at Redfall and say, like, hey, you guys are making this on Unreal. We've got some really good people over on our teams to be able to help provide resources and knowledge about how to build games on Unreal Engine. And he talked about how they have a plan going forward for 60 FPS that people from the coalition, from Rare for Sea of Thieves, had helped with Arkane Austin to be able to develop that plan on how to get 60 frames per second for Redfall. But that plan should have been back in February, or not February, back in the fall of 2022. Like, it should have been in place well before now. And he talks about how going forward for acquisitions, they're going to step into those rooms with those studios, take a look at what they're building and say, okay, where are you guys? Where can we offer assistance where we have resources from other teams? Because it's something that happens a lot between the teams in Microsoft Studios. So it was really interesting to kind of see, like, where, like, how he was basically admitting, like, you know, we didn't stick our hands in the making of this cake when we probably should have helped out a little bit more. And
there's a line to walk there. There's a line. So I appreciated the way he talked about this, because he took responsibility. He didn't lambast Bethesda, Arkane, or anybody else. In fact, one of my favorite things he said in that interview was, I would bet on Arkane again. They're great creators. They didn't have the help they needed from us, and that's on us, and that's on me. He did talk about how he, and I believe he name dropped Pete Hines, and one or two other people.
A couple other people.
Yeah, and he's like, yo, we need to have some conversations about how this goes about so this doesn't happen, because it is damaging to the Xbox brand. And I think that's a fair statement to make. He wasn't talking about how they were going to go in and clean house and fire people or whatnot. He wasn't. He's like, this is on me. We should have fixed this. And he's right. They should have fixed this. It should have been better. But it wasn't, to me, a damning, like, you're all bad and this is your fault. It was hey, we should have done better. And I appreciated also, in that same element, wanting to bet on them again and wanting to go forward and, like, make use of their knowledge base across Rare, across the coalition, people that work with Unreal. The ideas do need to be shared in a better way, more streamlined way. And I believe armchair analysts sitting back in our chairs talking about games, playing games, they've got a lot on their plate as a company, and they're spread too thin. And some people may not be built for the role they're trying to inhabit. When you've got ABK, when you've got a number of other acquisitions, when you've got to be studio checking on, when you've got to do a showcase and build and build and build and prep and prep. I think the wrong people might be in the wrong places, but not necessarily bad people doing a bad job.
It's interesting, and maybe I'm Charlie Dang, pointing to the different, to the wall of evidence and with the strings and stuff. Maybe I've got my tinfoil hat here. I recall Pete Hines getting a little bit of flack on Twitter a while back after the acquisition for kind of stating about how there was a little bit of like a him hawing about him, like the whole, like, going first party and going just on Xbox and not being on PlayStation anymore. Do you remember anything about that, or am I making this stuff up?
I'm not saying you're making it up, but I feel like that's something I probably would have quickly dismissed and just moved on from.
Okay. The reason I ask is because it seems like one of those things where, it's.
He's got a boss now, and he probably didn't like that, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I remember something about that. I can't remember, so I won't
because they had that round table where they all sat down and they basically said the only thing that changes is that Bethesda is part of Xbox, but Bethesda has largely operated independently.
Yep.
And Redfall has been in production since before the acquisition. And while I appreciate the desire to please the people that create games for you, and that's important, right? That's how you get your Pentiment. That's how you get Hi-Fi Rush, because, and I believe Phil addressed this as well, you don't want to pigeonhole a studio to making only what they want to make. Otherwise, we would have gotten Evil Within 3, and Hi-Fi would have never been created. Pentiment would never have been made, and such. But so there's a balance between allowing creators to create and not forcing them into a square peg round hole, but also curating the first party experience to be top notch. And that's important.
Yeah. I remember what it was. He was apologizing to PlayStation fans for the Xbox exclusivity.
That's right. And that was taken out of context, I felt.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm misremembering too, is that that's kind of what's going on. But it like Phil said, he recognizes the expectation that when a third party studio gets acquired by a first party console manufacturer, that there is now a quality level that needs to be upheld as a first party. It's one of the things that I think a lot of Nintendo fans are annoyed with Nintendo about how they have these amazing AAA experiences from these third or second party studios, and they never go and acquire them. It's like they never want to commit to making them a first party studio, because you'd love to see them make more IPs from that franchise, from that console in that studio. But to kind of keep moving on here, it was really interesting to me that Redfall was deeper into development than Starfield, given the scope of when they jumped in and started to address Starfield. And it makes me wonder, was Starfield kind of around the same time as Redfall, but they saw the Todd Howard, baby that Starfield is going to be, and they wanted to ensure that was the next Halo after Halo Infinite. And they didn't put as much attention on Redfall as they did Starfield? Or is Starfield actually been in a shorter amount of production time than Redfall? Because if it is, the scope that they're talking versus the amount of time that they've had to build it, very interesting there to kind of think about like how that's going to land.
It does not inspire confidence, I'll tell you that.
Well, and that was one of the questions at the end of the interview. Some of the short questions was Phil Spencer. Snowbike Mike had asked Phil Spencer. I was just going to say Xbox P3. But the Snowbike Mike had asked if Starfield, if we were going to get the answer at the showcase, if Starfield was going to be a 30 frames or 60 frames game. Given the knowledge that we were seeing footage of Redfall at 60, Phil knew that it was going to launch at 30. I feel like that was an easy win that Phil could have dropped. And it concerns me that he didn't answer that directly right then and there, the way he did when Paris was sugarcoating the 2022 lineup that we missed. He was like, no, we failed on 2022. On this, it could have been so easy for them to say Starfield's going to be 60, and they didn't. And I don't know if that's because they didn't want to pull a nice little key point out of the Xbox showcase and Starfield Direct that they wanted to have. But this is a very catered interview, and there was definitely things that they probably wanted to make sure that they didn't spill before the actual showcase.
Yeah, there's two possibilities on that one. The first is that they want Bethesda to be able to speak for Bethesda.
Yeah.
The other possibility is more likely it's not going to. But either way, they need to be cautious in how they approach marketing for Starfield now at this point. It needs to be transparent, upfront. And I got to tell you, if they had discussed Redfall as launching in a way that Grounded did, and you're going to have a year of early access, you all get to play it, it's going to change, and they had launched it at $30 instead of 70, you'd have been different. Been different.
That was something that I want to jump into now with Redfall, because we, and unless there's something else about the showcase that you want to touch on.
The only thing I liked about that I wanted to touch on that we haven't mentioned is he said no one should believe me until they have a controller in their hands. And you're damn right. Like Xbox gives me the experiences I often want, but he's right, and I appreciate that knowledge of like, yeah, you've burned a lot of bridges, and this Redfall deal, as we lead into it, is Xbox performing badly this year? Did it perform badly in 2023? It has lackluster given AAA experiences. The last 5 releases by Xbox are Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Age of Empires on console, Tokyo Drift, Ghostwire Tokyo on Xbox, and Minecraft Legends. And all are good. They're neat. Some of them are very niche, and they're not going to get mass appeal. But that's a pretty darn good record until you get to Redfall. And that's to be noted. Next to Sea of Thieves content, Grounded's full release, next to Halo Infinite finally getting on track. Too late, but finally on track. There are a lot of good things happening on Xbox. Expansion for Forza Horizon, I will continue to tout that they have wins. They're just not the win they have to have.
So, before we jump into Redfall, let's talk about that, because this was a very telling interview in the sense that Phil came out and said, hey, we're in 3rd place and we're not going to get to first by following in the same track as in the wake of anyone else. That, going and doing what Sony is doing is not going to make Xbox sell more consoles than Sony. And he this is the thing that I think a lot of people are taking out of context about this, but he and maybe this is just me, but he says that they're going to release games that review in the high 80s, and they're also going to release games that review in the 60s, and to not be afraid of releasing games in the 60s. And what he's basically saying is that he believes in the creative of control that the studio should have to make games that they want, instead of pigeonholing them into games that they should be making. And you look at this and you see, like, everyone and their mom wants Rare to just make more Banjo games and Killer Instinct, and not letting them make Sea of Thieves or Everwild would have been some of the biggest things to destroy a studio's morale. And, I think that's why a lot of people left Rare to go make Ukulele. And I think that, the people that wanted to make the Banjo decided to go create their own IP because they wanted to have a Banjo-Kazooie. The majority of the studio voted on Sea of Thieves, and both have succeeded in their own rights. Ukulele has like 3 games now. Sea of Thieves has been out for 5 years, and they're all really good.
And I would point everybody to Sea of Thieves launch, State of Decay 2's launch, Grounded's launch. Pretty darn rough. Darn rough. Bare bones, 6s, 7s, maybe 9 if you're Xbox era. But like, 6s and 7s. And now look at Sea of Thieves. Now look at Grounded. And State of Decay 2, pretty darn great for the size of that team, I would argue. But they didn't launch well. And belief in a team, supporting a team is important. I don't know where Redfall goes, but as we get into the Redfall portion of that interview where Phil Spencer addressed it, and Famous Seamus asked us what our thoughts were on that one, and so we're answering that, Famous. I love that Phil would bet on this team again. I love that he didn't blast them. He talked about failed expectations and failed a lot of things, but there wasn't a, hey, you suck. Hey, this isn't good enough. And obviously that would look bad, but it feels to me like there is a support of that team that maybe we wouldn't have otherwise known about had he not said it that way.
Yeah.
And I want so badly to interview Harvey Smith or Sadie Boyd or Ricardo Bear, because I'm having a lot of fun in this game that admittedly is not launched well and deserves criticism, but I'm having fun with it.
What was interesting is that according to Phil, they saw that the creative vision, because there's been a lot of questions about like feature complete, polish, things like that about Redfall. Like, is this game actually done? We talked about it. This game feels like it's in the 80% of making the game. And Phil talked about this. He addressed it. He said, as far on paper, Redfall hit the creative vision. of what it was going for.
Mm-hmm.
And the crash rates were expected in the margin that they should be for the game, which to me says that there was no reason that them delaying it another 3 months or another 6 months would have significantly impacted that game, which to me is kind of an admission that a game is going to launch bad, and they're okay with launching a bad game if it hits the check boxes of, yes, we completed the game, it's feature complete, it delivers on what we wanted it to do as far as being the game that we were setting out to do. And he was surprised by the disconnect between what the audience expected and what they thought the audience was going to expect. He talked about how their internal reviews, their mock reviews, were double digits higher than what it actually came out at the time of the recording, which the game was reviewing from critics at a pretty low 60s. It's actually dipped into the 50s now. And they were double digits higher, which means they at the bare minimum expected this to land in the 70s, which to me shows that there's a big disconnect of being between like what they say is an immersive sim action FPS open world game to what other people are finding in it. And he addressed like, hey, we need to go and make sure that we're doing better about these assessments because we missed the mark by a lot. And it was nice to have him say like, hey, we're sorry that we didn't do that. But
being disappointed, she said disappointing Xbox fans is something that really bothers him. And whether I'm finding the fun or not, whether our community's finding the fun or not, because our Discord is popping off with people that really enjoyed it. Which surprised me. Pleased me, of course, because I want people to enjoy games, but it surprised me. But the masses are certainly lamenting it. And I do think, Logan, that there are a number of people that haven't played it that are going to dump on this game. And I think that some of that is okay, right? Like some of that is fine. You can look at reviews and say this game disappoints. But I will say to those that try it, if you go in with an open mind, you probably can find a way to enjoy a good chunk of it. That doesn't negate objective criticism of feeling feature incomplete, AI being poor, levels not being fleshed out. There's a difference there between bandwagon dumping on a game and saying it's bad without having played it, or addressing and discussing review scores. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I like a lot of the technical stuff, like the texture streaming issues, the frame rate issues, the AI pathing, stuff like that can all get addressed. But there is at its core, there are things about this game that don't feel like they were able to really be unique about this. It felt like, and I wanted to ask you, like, how do you feel about, because with Gears, we've gotten 5 Gears. We've got multiple Gears games, but we've had 5 mainline Gears games. The Coalition has been working on them for a while now. 343 has been working on Halos for a while now. And Halo specifically still kind of missing. But then we see studios coming out with games like Sea of Thieves, with Stage of Decay, these new IPs, and they're kind of learning how to do these games that are outside their wheelhouse. And sometimes they pop off like Hi-Fi Rush, and sometimes they don't, like Sea of Thieves. And Xbox is willing to give them and Redfall the time it needs to be able to flesh those games out, to really kind of fix them and to build stuff out, if gamers are going to be focused on playing those games. But do you feel like that is a strong way to sell a console manufacturing and ecosystem? Like, hey, we're okay if this game fails at launch because we're committed to making it as long as people are continuing to play it? Or should they really kind of like focus on building more quality games? And it's something I've been talking about all week. I don't want Xbox to go and make God of War with their own character. I just want Xbox to make games that are on the same level, same polish, the same kind of like, I want the quality and the narrative deliverance of something like a God of War from Xbox at launch. I don't want to have to wait 5 years for a game to get good. And it'll be on Game Pass, so that's cool. I don't have to buy the game if I don't want to, but there's still people that like to do that. but I just want them to deliver the quality on launch instead of saying like, well, this was their first attempt at this. So, it was bound to have some hiccups. It's like, that's an excuse, in my opinion. There's enough research. There's enough talent out there. You can hire the right people to make a fantastic game at launch. Sony does it. I want Xbox to do it. And I think that's what frustrates me more than anything out of this.
I think price point makes a big statement when you're discussing what it is you want to sell your players. Redfall at 30 wouldn't have had the problems, or some of the we wouldn't have some of the problems we have with it. It would, if it had not been a tent pole, if it had been like Pentiment, hey, we got this coming out. It's cool. Check it out. It sends a different message. Hellblade better deliver. Starfield better deliver. Avowed better deliver. Fable better deliver. Redfall was an unknown quantity, and I'm okay with a launch like this. I would have been okay with a launch like this had it been marketed as small team out of Arkane, not Arkane Austin. This is Arkane, or not Arkane Lyon, but Arkane. They could have presented Redfall in a way that said, "Try it, see if it's for you," and it would have been a very different reception. And I think Aaron Greenberg at Xbox proper, I think Pete Hines at Bethesda, and then the leadership teams therein need to discuss how they're marketing, how they're observing, what their internal process is, because Redfall at 30, I'm telling people to check it out. Redfall on Game Pass without this hoopla, I would have been telling people, yeah, see if it's for you, see if you like it. Redfall at 70 is insulting to your customer base. It's disrespectful to your customer base. It says we're okay giving you a broken product at full price, and that's a different discussion. And so Starfield has got to hit its points, man. It's got to hit its internal points. It's got to hit the external points. They need better mock reviews. I'll tell you that. And they need Avowed and Hellblade 2 to really move the needle on a AAA barometer, thermometer, whatever.
Level.
It's got level. Sure. Thank you. That's a better word. Because they cannot consistently keep disappointing their player base. 2022 was not a bad year for Xbox, but it was a bad year for AAA releases for Xbox, which means you're going to sell poorly the next year, right? Yeah. And 2023, I think, has been a good year for Xbox, where they've released a bad game. And again, bad is an air quotes thing here. Having fun, not a great game, barely a good game, but I still like it. It's just so frustrating.
It's cool. It's not interesting.
Yeah, sure. Yes, sure. That's a good way to put it. And so it shouldn't have these mixed. I shouldn't be stuck on this conversation. I shouldn't be confused by it. It should be, no, it's great. And because all the problems I had with God of War Ragnarok, that game's amazing.
Yeah. Here's what I want for the rest of 2023. Dear Xbox, Phil Spencer, I love you. Here's the discussions that I want to have with Luke. I want to be talking about where I'm at in the game, what cool thing I've discovered, what paths did I choose, how I feel about the characters, how beautiful it is, how amazing, good of a time, like how much time I'm losing sleep over playing this game, thinking about it. Like, those are the conversations I want to have at $70. Mm-hmm. Not, is this game cool, but it's not interesting? Should you buy it? Should you play it on Game Pass? Like, if you have friends, feel free to jump in, have fun. You'll have a little bit of fun. I guarantee you're going to have some fun with this game, but it's not a good game for me. It's a mediocre game at best that I can still have fun with, but there are so many things pushing me away from loving this game that I have a hard time doing. And all I want to do for the rest of 2023 is play games where I'm just sitting here loving it, gushing over how amazing and what a time we're living in. Because I haven't gotten that yet.
One of the things in that same Spencer interview is he's like, I'm really looking forward to Showcase. Like, we've got a lot of good stuff on there. And then he acknowledges full on, hey, you shouldn't believe me. You're right. And you're right. Like, I'm excited for Showcase. Show me what you got, bro. We know Avowed, Fable, Everwild. We know Indiana Jones. We know Perfect Dark. We know all these things and don't know a thing about them.
Yeah.
Show me the money, brother. And I'll show you the money. I'll spend the money, right? Like, I'm the guy that we were going to go to E3, right? Like, I wanted to go to this Showcase. I wanted to be in there with the best of the best and show it to me. So
That was another disappointment. Yeah. Let's move it.
Yeah. Talk about disappointment, that email I got. Polite emails make a big difference, PR peeps. All right. Small stories this week. I thought it was really cool that we saw Xbox storage. We had a great question from Todd Oxter last week, Logan, asking about Xbox storage. They get a price drop this week. The 1 terabyte memory card is down to $150. I still think that's $50 too expensive for a console gamer.
Oh, that's way too expensive.
But bringing them down is in the right direction. So there's something, but I'm still holding out for $100 for
Western Digital. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, big time. Starfield got an ESRB rating of M. Okay.
Not shocked.
Rogue Ally, you're excited. You say Rogue. I think it should be pronounced Rogue.
Hey, Phil Spencer called it a Rogue. All right.
I know. I was offended by that. Of all the things, Phil.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later though. When we get the May 11th announcement, then let's cover that, because we'll have like actual for sure information about that.
If you guys have questions or comments on the Rogue Ally, definitely tweet at capped_Logan. Because he's got a great interest in this one, and I'm going to be observing your conversation, listening to your conversation.
Yeah. I won't be able to get it, but I definitely am interested in it.
Cool. Yep. And then of course, if you missed our Jedi Survivor impressions, I know we both played a lot more. I like this patch that's just come out. Check out last week's episode of that one for sure.
It's good.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. So let's look at some listener questions for this week. This one comes from Mr. Famous Seamus. He wrote in over on Twitter and he says, with Tears of the Kingdom out in less than a week, what are some of your favorite open world games? I have to drop Witcher 3 in here. Absolutely incredible. The Spider-Man games, absolutely incredible. All the Arkham games to me, Arkham City and Asylum City, Night, and Origins, great open world games for me. Infamous, really enjoyed that open world. Those are some of my favorite open world games for all different reasons, right? I mean, bar none, one of the best open worlds is Witcher 3. Disappointed by Cyberpunk's open world for all the love I have for that, because I played it post patch and everything. Pretty
interesting. Okay,
pretty useless open world. I thought.
I would have to say Ghost of Tsushima is definitely one of those open worlds that I absolutely love. There was not a bad screenshot in that game. Doesn't matter where you're at. Horizon Zero Dawn, because I haven't played through Forbidden West all the way yet. Zero Dawn I had a really good time with, especially when I got into the groove of like how to actually play the game. Loved running around, going to their different places and stuff like that. I actually had a lot of fun with Far Cry 6. There's a point where you can actually end the game early, and I was actually surprised that the game actually let me do that. So I was really happy with that. But that's a fun game. That's got a lot of it's a dumb fun game in the way that most Far Cries are. I actually liked Cyberpunk. I mean, I've got like 300 hours in Cyberpunk 2077. I played at launch. I've played on multiple versions of the game when I was covering it. And I love that world. There's just it needs a new game plus, and it needs better content for DLCs and stuff like that. But I'm trying to think of some. I never played. See, I still haven't really played Elden Ring. So
real. I have 100. Take this, Ainsley Bowden. 186 hours in Elden Ring. Great open world.
Yeah.
Oh, we're dumb. Sea of Thieves.
I wouldn't call that open world.
You're wrong. It's absolutely it's all an open world. The whole world is open.
Well, it's open, but it's not a quote unquote open world game to me. Like that is, it's a giant arena.
What does Logan know about Sea of Thieves that I don't, guys? Honestly, it's a little embarrassing for him right now, right? Like I know Sea of Thieves. Come now.
There's no bases to cap. There's no like missions to go. Like everything is all, I don't know. It's pirates. It's not open world. It does not fit into your natural way. It's an adventure game.
You're not taking my bait, and I don't appreciate it.
It's a shared world adventure game. I will stand by swag for the rest of the time. Breath of the Wild, hands down, one of the best open worlds. It got me into open worlds because I had never really jumped into one. Also, calling Sea of Thieves an open world is like saying World of Warcraft is an open world. Get out of here.
Is it not?
it's a MMO. It is kind of an open world, but it's not your quote unquote Tears of the Kingdom open world game.
I threw bait out there and you did not take it.
Nope, I'm not going to do it. In fact, if anything, I'm going to go into Dano's question where he says, with the release of Redfall, what are some games you actually didn't hate, had a decent time with, but wouldn't recommend people play? You got anything?
Crackdown is the one that comes to mind, but I would recommend people play. I like doing that game. Crackdown. Yeah, it's got to be. Like, I really have a lot of fun with that, but I get anybody that's like, Crackdown's not very good. I'm like, I feel you. Like, that was an Xbox 360 game on the Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
I get you on that one.
Destiny 2 for me, man. I
Avengers.
love Avengers.
I love Avengers, man. I love that game. I know it's not what people want it, but you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. I would say Destiny 2 for me. I love that game. I would not recommend that game to people because it is a money sink, and it's like getting into Pokemon cards. You can have fun, but you're gonna have to get deep before you have fun, and it's going to be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the next one, Edward Varnell from Bosch Rust Network on Twitter asks, although ZeniMax Studios haven't hit their breakout factor with their releases on the current Xbox, do you think their name will shine again in the future? And do you think player support will increase with it once one game kicks it off?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think ZeniMax's name is actually lambasted so much. I don't think Bethesda's name is as bad. I mean, Fallout 76 would have done the damage, right? And yet people are stoked for Starfield. Right. But I mean, like, and yet people are excited for Starfield. People are excited for Elder Scrolls Online content that continues to be very successful. People still play and rent servers in Fallout 76. So I think damage was done, certainly, but a lot of what we see for damage done happens in closed ecosystems. It happens on Twitter. It happens in the podcast space. But the majority of gamers do not exist in those spaces. They exist in people that work 9 to 5 and don't have time to check this stuff. And they just log on and go. So I think there is certainly damage done, but I don't think, I think if Starfield's a hit, everybody's going to flock to it. You know,
so that's what I wanted to. I want to ask the straight up question that I think Ed is getting at here. Do you think Starfield's that next one?
Don't know. We haven't seen enough to know, and I'm not even being flippant to avoid his question. How can anyone?
That was my question. I'm not going to make him. I'm not going to put that heat on him.
Beyond me, how content creators and warriors of consoles will say that Starfield's the savior. You know nothing except for like a very curated video that they put out with Todd Howard in 2022, and that's it. This showcase will be very telling as to where the game's going to stand. The answer to 30 frames and 60 frames, the answer to what you're doing in the world, because Skyrim in space is the tagline. Skyrim was a travesty at launch, right?
Yeah.
The bugs are a feature. That's embarrassing. Xbox can't afford that to be a thing, and I would venture to guess that's why we Phil Spencer said that all those resources were sent to Bethesda to work on Starfield, not Redfall. But surely at this point they're like, hey, everybody at Coalition, we're not making Gears 6. You're all helping fix Starfield. You're all helping, like
stop the printers.
Everybody stop, fix the animation, do this. So, until Starfield delivers on the type of detail that you see in Jedi Survivor, where part of the ambiance is a rat running across a rock that you may never see until you get that God of War level polish. We won't know until we see that in a video and people are putting their hands on it. We just don't know if Starfield's the hit. On paper, yes, but we saw what on paper did to Arkane. So, and I
would temper expectations.
So would I. Yeah. You have no reason to think that they're going to deliver. You have no reason to. They've only capitalized on niche interest games, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Age of Empires, and games as service, Grounded, Sea of Thieves, Forza. Forza's not games as service, but I think it's the expansion.
So let's play a cute little game here. Before Showcase, we're a month out. Give me your mock Metascore for Starfield.
82.
82. Okay. I'm going to 77. I want to come back after Showcase and see if Showcase has adjusted our scores at all, and then see how these line up to when it actually launches.
Sure. Write it down. You better jot it down. I'll forget. But I will tell you this, buddy. That 82 to me has that Bethesda boost. You know how like Zelda is going to get that Nintendo boost. Breath of the Wild is great. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Top 5 games ever made for me. Still don't think it's worthy of some of the scores it got. It's not a perfect game. So we'll see. We will see.
Yeah. I'm writing this down. I got it.
Write it down, buddy. Yeah, go for it. I think I said 82, right?
Yep, 82. I said 77. We'll see if the post Showcase has.
Can you adjust mine to 81? I would like 81, please.
Oh my God.
81.
All right.
Thank you.
Let the record stand, Your Honor. He said 81.
That's right. Your Honor, I'm standing here for you before you here today. All right. Guys, we hope you are enjoying XEP. If you are able to drop a tip in the tip jar and show some love over on Patreon, that'd be great. If you can't do that, liking, sharing, subscribing, just watching is supportive of the show, and we appreciate you. We really appreciate those of you that write reviews over on iTunes or Spotify. They make all the difference. You can find me on Twitter at InsipidGhost, and of course XEP on all your podcast services. Logan, they need to be supporting Keelhauled. They need to be showing you some love. Where should they be doing that?
Just head over to Keelhauled Podcast in the Google search. You'll find it. Just type in Keelhauled. You'll either get a song from a band called Ailstorm, or you'll get my content. And neither is a bad choice. So I'll just let you know right now. Just search Sea of Thieves podcast. You'll eventually find Keelhauled. If you search Logun, Logun in Google, you'll find Keelhauled podcast there, or my Twitter account, which will take you to the Keelhauled podcast. So it's easy. Just head out there and search Keelhauled. You'll find me.
That's going to do it for us here. Have a great rest of your week, guys. Take care.